welcome to my video. This is the part of the show where we try to change my mind about one particular author that I have not had a good experience with. AKA, I'm going to give 5 authors second chances, seeing if I can improve my understanding of those authors' work. This was also the most voted on video on my Discord channel when I put up my polls. So if you guys want to have a say in the videos that I'm doing next, always go check out my Discord. So let's get into this video. The first author on this list is going to be William Gibson. I read Neuromancer by him and absolutely abhorred this book. I gotta say, it went so deep. It was the fact that I found the main character not only unlikable, but actively rooted against him. And there's something more than just the unlikable character. It was also just the way that he structures the stories. The way that he puts the words together just takes me out of the story. I can't get into the world. I can't get into the ideas. And he has some good ones, but I don't enjoy reading his story. I didn't like it. So I decided to pick up something a little bit later on in his body of work, maybe give him another chance that would be something that I actually like. And I really liked the TV show The Peripheral, which is based on his book, The Peripheral. So I decided to go ahead and pick that book up. And I gotta say, nope. I had the exact same problem that I had with Neuromancer. It was a little bit less in terms of my hatred for the story, but I didn't connect to the characters. I didn't like the way that he put the plot together. There's something about his sentence structure and style of writing that pulls me out of the story. I got to the end of that book, which I really wanted to know what happened to Flynn and all of her friends, and I just didn't care. It was so unmemorable to me. I don't even remember the end of the story. I didn't care about it by the end. And I almost quit in the middle many times. So I don't know what it is about William Gibson. I just don't get along with his writing style and his story structure. And I gotta say, I just don't think that I'm gonna continue with William Gibson for right now. He's just not for me, unfortunately. So that brings us to author number 2. This one is one that might be a surprise to some of you. It is Christopher Poloni. In case you're not aware, this author wrote the series Aragon as a child. This is a fantasy series mainly intended at younger audiences about a dragon, and he and I are of similar ages, and I think we grew up reading similar books. And I just could not forgive him as a kid for stealing, like blatantly stealing ideas as a child and putting them into this book. He didn't even try to make them his own. He just stole the idea and put it into the story. And I just couldn't get over that. And so I vehemently hated, actively ignored all of the books that he wrote. It's been a little while, and I decided to give him a chance, especially since, as an adult, he recently came out with a science fiction standalone, which very much intrigued me. It's a beautiful cover. I thought for sure that this was going to be one of those stories that he had a very childish writing and was going to be a story where he stole blatant ideas from other famous science fiction works and put them in here. And so I was ready. I opened up this book ready to hate it. And I was proven wrong. I actually liked this book. I really enjoyed this story. He had a very beautiful prose style. While it's not necessarily going to be in my top 10 books of all time or anything like that, I enjoyed it. It was a good story. It was original, and while I recognized a lot of tropes in this one, I really liked it. It was good. When I was in a book reading slump earlier, at the beginning of this month here, I picked up the second book, the one that he had as a prequel. And by the way, you can really read those in any order at all. They don't share characters or anything like that, but I like that one too. Fractal Noise, I think is called. It was good too. I'm really surprised. Christopher, you have converted me. I am now going to look out for anything else that he writes that's science fiction, and I'll give it a go. This one was really good. So that brings us to author number 3 on this list, which might be a surprise for a lot of you because I read this story before I started my BookTube channel, and that is Neil Gaiman. I read his story, American Gods, and I went into it with so much excitement that I just came out of it hating everything. What a cool idea he had with all the different kinds of gods and who is worshipped by the Americans and who is worshipped by the Aztecs and all the different gods from our past, and the interactions of them should have been a cool story. Nope. Nope, it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it was nothing but a nothing burger. It had no climax. There was really no plot other than he's trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, by the way, never does. And I tried the TV show, and it was equally as terrible. I hated it. I don't understand why everyone is obsessed with Neil Gaiman. So I've stayed away from a lot of his work. However, I had so many friends of mine who were like, his stuff is so good. And I do like the movie Stardust, so I decided to go ahead and pick up another book. Some of my friends recommended that the book that I should read next of his should be Neverwhere. So I picked up this book and read it very recently at the beginning of October. And I gotta say, nope. Still hated it. Still felt like it was an exercise in futility. So since I was planning on making this video, I sat down and really tried to reflect on the experience and why it is that I dislike this so much. And I came up with a very short explanation for why I dislike this. So my version of his stories, out of all 2 of them that I've read so far, is let's take a character that's an everyday schmo kind of guy, and he's going to do something that's super mundane that everyone does, that's super relatable. So we're going to take our main character, and he's going to go to the grocery store, right? And he's going to explain walking through the doors, and that this guy has a grocery list, and that, you know, he's going to make a special meal for, I don't know, like a party for his friends or something like that. And as he's going to go through, he's going to investigate all of the things that he's putting into his basket. And, you know, he's going to put, you know, a tomato in there and an avocado in there or whatever. And just about the time when you're really like saying, why am I reading this? Something is going to happen where he's looking in his basket and all of a sudden the tomatoes that he spent so long picking out are not in his basket. And he's going to spend a little bit of time justifying this and saying, oh, I must have just forgot, or maybe I was hallucinating or something. And then he's going to go back, pick out tomatoes again, put them back in his basket, and then continue on with the shopping. And then it's going to start to get really interesting, because then there's going to be like other shoppers that are like avoiding you, or like something suspicious seems to be happening. And then you're going to have some kind of interaction with the guy behind, you know, the meat counter, and he's going to hint that he knows what's happening and that the general manager is in on it, but he's not allowed to help, you know. And then all of a sudden you're going to get really interesting like conspiracy vibes, and there's something like crazy interesting going on, and you're going to get kind of into the story, even though it's only about a man in the grocery store. And then he's going to end the story by saying, oh, I don't really need the tomatoes anyway, and check out and pay for his groceries and leave. That is my understanding of the giant letdown that is Neil Gaiman's writing. Yep, that is the explanation of my hatred for Neil Gaiman. He's a good storyteller up until the point of he really can't end it. And it's just, it makes the whole story pointless, you know? Like, why? Anyway, so, okay, I'm probably done with Neil Gaiman for a very long time. That brings us to author number 4. So you guys, of all the authors on this list, this is the one that I didn't want to be on this list. I wanted to love this author, and I respect the man so much. This author is Kurt Vonnegut. As part of my project for 23 books that I'm reading for 2023, I read Slaughterhouse-Five by him, because this is probably one of his most famous works. A lot of high schools read it. It is a World War II story, but really it's about him having PTSD. And you guys, I barely made it through the story. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't even care about the aliens. I didn't care about the story. I was confused half the time. I just think that this book failed for me in every aspect. Not only did I not care about the characters or the story, but I got it to the point where I felt like other books more adequately showed me what PTSD or wartime is like. And I can name some of those books, like The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. It was just more of an emotional connection. It really made me understand what war was about. There's so many other good stories out there that did a better job for me than Slaughterhouse-Five. I understand that this is controversial and that plenty of you guys out there love it. That's good for you, but I didn't like it. So I decided to go ahead and pick up another book by him, and I asked some of my friends, okay, what is the book that I'm going to be most likely to love by him? And a lot of people recommended to me the book Sirens of Titan because it's his most science fiction book. So I was very excited to go ahead and pick this one up. And sad to say, nope, didn't like it. I think the best way to explain this is that his writing style is very traditional in the most traditional sense. So when we get to the story, if there's a main character who walks into a boardroom with a company, he's going to stop the story and say, let me tell you the history of the company, how it was created. Let me tell you how the guy who created it died. Let me tell you about his will. Let me tell you about his intentions and whether they were effective. Okay, now we can go back to the boardroom with the main character of the story. Oh wait, somebody else walked into the boardroom. Let me tell you his past. Let me tell you his grandmother's story. Let me tell you why he ended up here. Like, really, man? Really? Like, let's get back to the story here. I can't take it. I am so not a classics reader. If you are somebody who is a classics reader, Kurt Vonnegut is probably for you. He has such a funny way of telling stories. His drawings are really clever. I loved all of his personal talks on YouTube, but I just can't take his writing. Cannot take it. I guess I'm too much of a millennial reader. I don't know what to say. I'm really sad and ashamed, but Kurt Vonnegut is just not for me. Let's move on to author number 5. Fight. This one is not going to be a big surprise for you, but it is PKD, the man himself, Philip K. Dick. This guy has so much hype around him that I feel like it was going to be hard for him to live up to that anyway. But when I picked up Man in the High Castle, you guys, I wanted to burn that book. If you want to talk about futility, if you want to talk about taking maybe the coolest idea ever conceptualized in all of science fiction, or at least it could have been, and then just burning it into a puff of smoke. He just did nothing with it. There's no point to reading that book. I feel like it should be burned. I hate that book, Undying Passion, forever. However, I really wanted to like him. So I gave him a second chance by reading Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I really like the Blade Runner movie series, so I was really excited to read it. And as is probably not a surprise to most of you, this book is way different than the movie in many ways. But I kind of felt pretty ambivalent about it. I didn't really hate it, but I 100% did not love it. I thought he had a couple of good ideas, but I questioned a lot of the execution of those ideas, and I feel like he didn't really put it together well. He just had random idea and random idea and random idea and then just put them in a book and shoved it at you. It just didn't sit well with me that I wasn't sure if I was converted to PKD or not. I wanted to either be sure I didn't like him or be sure that I did, and I didn't feel great about this, so I did something unprecedented. I read a third book by him, and boy, did that solve my question. So I picked up the book Ubik, not really knowing what to expect. And you guys, I freaking loved Ubik. It was perfection. What a cool idea. What a perfect ending. What cool characters. I loved Ubik. Loved. As in, maybe it's gonna make my top 10 best science fiction books of all time. Haven't decided yet, still thinking on it, but it is dang close. Tenuously Converted. I'm gonna read some more of his stuff and decide. I really was impressed by Ubik. So, for the biggest surprise of the year, right there. I found something worthwhile to read and spectacularly done that is worth the hype. Ubik. Read it. High recommend.
Well done.
So you guys, those are all of the book authors that I did. And I gotta say, 2 out of the 5 isn't too bad. Especially considering first impressions aren't always the best ones. So I really liked this project, and if you guys do too, I plan to maybe do this one every year. But if you have any other recommendations for some of these authors and books, please leave those in the comments section down below. And until next time, you guys, see you later.